Hi, I'm Steve Kostansky, director of Frankie Frico, Psycho Gorman, and co-director of The Void, here to tell you to check out the Carlisle Cult Cinema Club. Check out their Facebook page and their YouTube channel. Make sure you hit like and subscribe and do all that good stuff. While you're at it, check out The Instructor. Pretty fun movie. Bye.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's me, PD, back with another Carlisle Cult Cinema Club Presents. And in this episode, I'm joined by Neil Marshall in conversation, the legendary British horror filmmaker and action filmmaker who's got 107 IMDb credits, 20 as a director, 14 as a producer, 13 writing credits, 16 as an editor, 3 as an actor, 7 thanks tos, and 34 as a talking head. I'm sure there's many more as well. And you've directed some absolutely fantastic horror and action films. And you once lived in this little city of ours, Carlisle, for quite a long time. Welcome to the show, Mr. Neil Marshall.
Thank you for having me. It's an absolute pleasure.
It's been a long time in the making, but finally, you know, we've got here.
Yeah, no, we worked it out eventually. These things take time.
They do. All good things come to those who wait, as they say. So basically, I'm just going to have a bit of a trip through your career.
Okay.
Mostly the film work, to be honest. But yeah, just a little trip through your career. Of some bits I've noticed while rewatching your films again over the last couple of days. My Dog Soldiers is at least a once a year watch. I must admit, I love that film.
Wow, that makes me very proud.
Yeah, first film I ever saw of yours, and it's still my favourite film of yours.
Thank you. Much appreciated.
So let's start with Dog Soldiers. Obviously, you've done a couple of shorts beforehand. Combat was filmed in Carlisle.
It was.
And has a friend of mine in it, Karen Farr.
Yeah.
Whose husband managed my old band.
It was quite the Carlisle kind of gathering, really, at the time. So I was living there. I can't remember when I moved there. It was like 97, I think it was. Dog Soldiers. I was there when I did Dog Soldiers. I was there when I did Descent. Either in Carlisle or just south of Carlisle, because I moved down toward the lakes at one point. So I was still in that region for a while until after Descent, and then I moved down to London, but all around about Doomsday time. Anyway, so I was certainly there for a while, and it was a big inspiration, for sure.
Because as a lot of people don't realise, but Carlisle has got quite a lot of history.
Oh, it's got some great history. Also, like, for me, it's the other end of Hadrian's Wall. So basically, I grew up in Newcastle, and then the other end is Carlisle, and obviously some of my stories feature Hadrian's Wall in one form or another. So there's definitely like historic connections to my work through that. Combat was done out of necessity. That I was trying to get Dog Soldiers made at the time. I'd written it, but I was trying to get it financed, and it occurred to me that I didn't have anything to prove to investors that I actually knew, how to direct a movie or tell a story. So I thought I'd better do a short film. And I was walking back from the pub one night in Carlisle and had this idea of like, what if a night out at the pub was replaced with the sound effects of a war film, because everything that was going on in the pub kind of related to war films somehow, to combat and to war. In its own kind of way. And once I had the first idea of like pint glasses being like empty shell casings, and the fan in the roof being like the helicopter blades or something like that, so it sounded like combat. It all just fell into place, and I wrote this thing like the next day, and managed to get some money to make it, and gathered everybody in Carlisle who was interested in kind of being involved. Got got a bunch of crew that ended up working on Dog Soldiers, some cast members who ended up working on Dog Soldiers, um, and set about making combat. And it was just a really fun experience. 2 days in the social club, with all the extras being paid in beer, not money. So everybody had a pretty good time with it.
Which club was it in Carlisle?
It was the rugby club. I can't remember what it was called.
Was it the Railway Club?
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's it.
I thought it was. Yeah, had many.
Yeah, and it was perfect. It was big enough for us, It was like something, because I think originally I wanted to set in a pub, and it was just that wasn't going to happen. But the Railway Club was just the right size, and they were very accommodating. So yeah, got it done that way.
Yeah, I've had many a good night in the Railway Club. My dad DJ'd in there umpteen times for different parties, and I always got an invite. So I've seen some states in there to do stuff over the years. Even been since from a little kid.
Yeah.
Because I'm a Harrowby lad. So, that was a place we'd all frequent. But anyways, combat, excellent little short as well. And that came on the DVD of Dog Soldiers, I can remember.
It did for one of the DVDs for sure. It did. So I mean, it served its purpose in like proving that I could make a film, and we shot it on 16mm, and it turned out pretty good. That I think one of the things that helped with it was that it doesn't have any dialogue, so it's like it plays, anywhere. So yeah, I did that, and that was in '99, and then 2001 was filming Dog Soldiers over in Luxembourg. So it still took a little while, but made it happen.
Yeah. But I'm going to say you've got a bit of a thing about Scotland in a few of your films, and they've either been filmed in Scotland or set in Scotland, Dog Soldiers, but filmed in, was it Norway or Luxembourg?
Luxembourg.
Yeah. So there's always, especially in your first kind of, 4 films, there's that big kind of...
well, I mean, that came from...
Carlisle,
yeah,
Scotland.
I mean, obviously growing up in Newcastle is one thing, but like our family holidays every year were in the Highlands of Scotland. Went up there so many times, and it was just a huge inspiration to me. So like, I definitely, that inspired Dog Soldiers, that inspired so many things. So I spent a lot of time there. Even when I stopped going with my family, I would go up there with friends, or I'd go up there by myself and like, just get inspiration from the place. So, and it was also that not a lot of films were being shot in the Highlands of Scotland. So I think I saw it as open territory to go and exploit, in film terms. Of course, it turns out it's more difficult to film there than you think. We couldn't get any funding in the UK for Dog Soldiers. We couldn't get any funding in Scotland for Dog Soldiers. So, we ended up going to Luxembourg to do it. But we did shoot a couple of days up there, up in the Highlands, which was great. No, it's just funny because like 2 weeks ago I was up there again for the first time in like 20 years. I've been up to the Highlands of Scotland and gone back to some of the old places, and it's just like, I mean, it hasn't changed, but it's it's equally inspirational, and it's magic to be back there. So it's like that's what is kind of coming full circle of what inspired so many parts of Dog Soldiers and Doomsday and Centurion for sure. So yeah. The Scotland connection, which is also why a lot of people mistakenly think I'm Scottish. And if they don't think I'm Scottish, they think I've got some beef with the Scots. Neither of which is true. It's like, neither of which is true. I love Scotland. I love the Scots. I'm not Scottish, but there you go.
You're a proud Northerner and a Geordie. So Dog Soldiers, fantastic cast for the first film as well. A lot of them guys went on to do so much more, and some were just, Sean Pertwee is superb. Kevin McKidd, excellent. Liam Cunningham, all brilliant actors in this awesome film.
I got very lucky with the cast for sure. I mean, Sean was definitely on the lists like right from the start and was very, very loyal to the project. And Kev came in kind of at the last minute, but like what a find. And then Liam was in there as well, and again like had no idea of where he was going to go in his career. So like no, that's amazing cast.
So the setting with the England-Germany match, I take it that was just a coincidence. And while
it was written in the
filming,
script from the start. So I mean, obviously, like the script took, from writing the first draft to getting it made was 6 years. So it's quite a long
yeah,
period of time. And always in the script there was a football match between England and Germany, and England win in the end 5-0. But then at some point in pre-production, I think it was shortly before pre-production on the movie, England played Germany and
right.
beat them 5-1. And we were like, oh, that's too good to be true. So let's put that in the script and give it like a place in history. So that's where that came about.
It's just brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
I think what I need to do is write football results into my scripts more often, and maybe they'll come true.
Well, this is it. Very serendipitous. Because I think that's brilliant. How did you come up with that great bit at the start with the zips?
Well, I used to camp a lot, and I used to camp a lot in the Lake District and stuff like that. And I think, yeah, it was just an idea that I had of like, he starts on her zipper and then it like cuts to the zipper on the tent. It was just like, I don't know, you just get this random inspiration from things.
It's a great gag, to be fair. It works really well. And it's got everything in there as well, because you've got Cooper telling the story, the camp, the haunted house, ghost story around the campfire.
Yeah.
Which fits in with a lot of horror films, which was excellent as well.
You got that. You got Sean telling his story, which was very much a kind of like trying to be like Quint from Jaws, giving them a speech like that to do. I think also like the things about the stories of the creatures on the moors and all that kind of stuff. There was a lot in the headlines at the time about, like the Beast of Bodmin Moor and all that kind of stuff, which is again that sort of big inspiration for it.
We've supposedly got one around Carlisle on the outskirts.
Yeah, I mean, I love those.
Description.
I love that mythology, and I think we need those mysteries and unanswerable questions. It's like the Bigfoot thing. I love that the Bigfoot myth exists. And I hope that we never actually capture one alive or whatever, because it's like as long as it remains an unknown mystery, it's fascinating. It's the same with the Loch Ness monster.
Yeah.
I'm like Mulder. I'm like, I want to believe. So
I'm the same. Ghosts, vampires, werewolves. I believe it's all real. It's all true.
There's some essence of truth in there somewhere, and aliens for sure. I have to believe there's aliens out there.
Oh yeah, definitely. There's bits in Dog Soldiers that you don't notice first time round, like the bone in the fire.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You don't notice that first time around. It just looks like a log. But once you've seen the film and you go back and watch it, you start noticing these little things you've put all around the house, all around the cottage.
Yes.
As I say, giving away that this family are the werewolves.
Yeah, well, and also the whole thing about it's the Goldilocks thing, but it's the stew and what does it taste like, chicken and stuff like that, was like, okay, what's in the stew? All these little beats that are there that people pick up on later on. Yeah,
it's very clever. And obviously when the lads first meet the werewolves, you can see very Predator, which is just superb. So you can see Predator being a big influence, which we've chatted before, because you've done an introduction video for when we screened Dog Soldiers, and Zulu was a influence, and obviously you can see the Evil Dead. For me, watching it for the first time, it felt like when I first watched the Evil Dead.
Yeah, Evil Dead 2 is a huge influence. Assault on Precinct 13 was another one.
Yeah.
I love that. Possibly my favorite Carpenter film. That's in terms of how much it inspired me. But doing a siege movie with like combining that with Zulu kind of thing. It was also like thinking of like, well, what would a bunch of British squaddies do if they ran into the Predator? How would they react? How we wouldn't just be very po-faced about it. There would be some like jokes made. So
well, we always make jokes at in our adversity, the Brits.
It's trench humor, it's gallows humor, whatever you want to call it. But I'm fascinated by that, and I grew up on that because my dad was ex-army, and and he told me a whole bunch of stories that, like, they're funny stories, but they come out of like ridiculous or dangerous situations. It's like that stuck in my mind for sure.
Definitely. No, but the banter between the lads is a good part of Dog Soldiers, which,
Ultimately, I think that's why it lasts so well, is the characters, that people like the characters so much, so that's what they come back for more. Because ultimately the werewolves are there, but they don't feature that much compared to the characters. And I always said, like, I wanted to do like a really authentic depiction of British squaddies and try and get all the terminology right and try and get the behavior right and the humor right. And I'm fairly confident I did that, given the amount of squaddies that have told me that I did that. So I'll take their word for it. But yeah, that was the key thing for me, was to get that part right. And I think ultimately that's what people love about it.
No, the humor is it is absolutely fantastic, and obviously the frenetic energy of the fight sequences are just really good, and with the handheld camera work, it gives you that realism as well.
Definitely. No, we got stuck in there with the camera, and Sam with the camera, getting right in the action. I mean, there's a bit where Spoon is throwing all these plates toward the camera, as if the camera's the werewolf, and we didn't have breakaway plates, so they're real plates. So what we ended up having to do was Sam put on one of the army helmets and some goggles, and one of the stunt guys stood next to him with a riot shield and basically protected him and the camera as best as possible, while Spoon lobbed plates and stuff and smashed them off the shield. Yeah, it's that kind of filmmaking.
It works well. I know the scene. It works well. It works very well, to be honest. But yeah, it's such. I mean, it's Britain's greatest werewolf film, without a doubt. American Werewolf's not a British werewolf film. It was American money. It was just filmed over in Britain.
Yeah, it was a Universal picture. I mean, it's an American film in London.
That's it. So, without a doubt, Dog Soldiers is the greatest British werewolf film.
Oh, I'll take that. I mean?
No, it is. It's absolutely fantastic, and you kind of brought werewolves back as well, because werewolves are you don't get many good werewolf films.
Yeah, but there's a reason for that. Is that when you think about like the main monsters, you've got werewolves, you've got zombies, you've got vampires, stuff like that. But zombies and vampires are a hell of a lot easier to do than werewolves. You're having to come up with either major makeup effects or major CG effects, like, to create werewolves. So that's why you don't see many of them, and it's difficult to do on a low budget as well. So and that's what everybody told me, like, when I was trying to get this one made, was like, it's way too ambitious for a first feature. It's werewolves, for God's sake, like, do something simpler. And I just wouldn't listen to them.
So how comes you went for the much harder to do bipedal werewolf?
Because to me, that is that is the werewolf.
Yeah.
If it walks around on four legs, it's just a wolf. Like, if there's too much of the wolf in the werewolf there. I think in order to be a proper scary hybrid, it has to adopt that human form, walking around on two legs. But with wolf attributes, I think that just inherently makes it scarier.
Oh, it does. It does. That was my disappointment with American Werewolf in London. Loved all the transformation scenes. Hate the end wolf. Love the film. I've got a tattoo of it. You can't see, but I've got the tattoo on my arm.
Yeah.
That I won in a competition. But that end werewolf is just a little bit of a disappointment. It looks great, don't get us wrong, but I'd rather have a man on 2 feet.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. I always said, though, that obviously the transformation in American Werewolf is flawless, but I love the werewolves in The Howling better.
Yeah.
As the bipedal ones, but yeah.
But no, I mean, the werewolves in Dog Soldiers are superb. They are really look the part.
But I'll tell you a story about that. Many years later, I was lucky enough to visit the set of Burke and Hare, and when John Landis was filming just outside London. And I'm sitting at the monitor watching Landis direct and, seeing Simon Pegg and everybody doing their thing. And Landis comes back to the monitor and he says, "Oh, by the way, have you met Rick before?" And I turn around and Rick Baker's sitting behind me. And I hadn't met Rick before. And John introduces us and said, "Oh, this is Neil, who directed Dog Soldiers, blah, blah, blah." And Rick he was shaking my hand. He just took my hand and he stared at me and he just said, "Aren't you the guy who said that the werewolf in American Werewolf should have been on two legs instead of four?" And I was like, oh, I cringed immediately. I was like, yeah, that was me. And he like held my gaze for what felt like an eternity and then said, "I agree with you. It was John wanted it on four legs."
Now, could you imagine a Rick Baker two-legged werewolf?
Yeah, yeah. No, it would have been
Would have been,
astonishing. But I mean, it's
yeah,
a small point because it's not like American Werewolf isn't a masterpiece. It's just like it's a small
no,
point. It's
no,
just, for us werewolf
no, it
addicts, it's
isn't.
a bit of a niggling thing. Yeah,
But yeah, I went to the cinema to see Dog Soldiers when it was released, and as soon as it was available on DVD, I bought it, and I've bought multiple different Blu-rays from the German one to the more recent release. I've got the Scream Factory one as well. So
yeah,
it's always been high on my list of horror films, to be honest. It's
oh,
always a go-to werewolf film. I
cheers.
believe the transformations, you didn't want to go down the transformations, so you kind of borrowed a little bit from Carry On Screaming.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it was that thing. It was like, we didn't, we kind of spent all our budget on the werewolves themselves, and there wasn't any money left to do any kind of like significant transformation. And I knew I was like, if I go down the practical route, I know it's going to look shit compared to, The Howling, let alone American Werewolf. Um, and if I go down the CG route, which at that time, CG was looking like American Werewolf in Paris, which was not great. I was like, I don't want to go down that route. It's like it's gonna look bad and cheap and ruin the film, and we're not going down that route. So, yeah, I found inspiration from Carry On Screaming, which is like basically just fall down behind the furniture and then pop up and you're like transformed. I was like, yeah, that's what we'll do.
That's super. I mean, Carry On Screaming is my favourite Carry On film.
Well, I
It's
remember the
it's
thing is, so when I saw it as a kid, I'm 5 or 6 years old or whatever. I thought it was terrifying. I didn't fuck I because it was filmed in the style of a Hammer movie and it had good production values and
it
stuff. So,
was, yeah.
and I didn't get the comedy at all at that age. It's only later on that you realize how hilarious it is. But it seemed just like another Hammer film to me. And so I was like, I remember being scared of Carry On Screaming the first time I saw it. I don't know, as a 5 years old or something. But yeah, but that was the way to do the transformation for sure.
Definitely. I just think that's brilliant. It's there's so many great images in that movie, but that reveal when she steps back and said, she reveals that she's part of the family, and you've
Yeah,
got the three werewolves standing behind her.
yeah.
That is an iconic piece of horror cinema just there, especially of the last 20 odd years.
I mean, it is a great image of trying to get all three of the werewolves in that corridor and get them behind her and all that kind of stuff was not easy, but also like it's a complete cinematic cheat of like from the camera's point of view, it's like they rise up, but you're kind of thinking, well, couldn't he see them all like on the ground? So
Yeah, yeah.
it was meant to be that they were coming out of the shadows, but we couldn't quite get the shadow right. So we did it with camera angles and lens sizes and stuff instead. But I mean, it still works, I guess. And still, you buy it.
Oh no, you certainly do. I mean, I watched Dog Soldiers again 2 nights ago, and as soon as I seen that piece, you just look at it. It's just great to look at, especially as a punter. You're the filmmaker, but as a punter, it
Yeah.
is just superb sequence to look at.
I was just at that point, I was just grateful to get the werewolves in the house because they work much better in the house.
Yeah,
Because when they were on their stilts or whatever out in the woods, they kept on falling over and tripping over each other, and they couldn't walk around because they were blind. They couldn't, the guys
yeah,
couldn't see anything of that with the masks on. So once we got them in the house, they had something to hold on to, and they would hold on to the roof or the banisters and stuff, and they could move around much better. And I could finally achieve the kind of grace that I was after for them. So yeah, it's funny.
But no, that scene, absolutely fantastic. So we've kind of covered Dog Soldiers. So we're going to move on to The Descent, your second film. And what a second film. I mean, your debut.
It's like your second album, isn't it?
Yeah, well, this is it. And everybody dreads folks' second albums. But it was like your debut was such. I mean, was it a big hit, Dog Soldiers? Because I know it rented well and.
Yes. I mean, it did pretty well in cinemas. It did very well on DVD. On I guess it was it the tail end of VHS? Definitely.
I've got VHS. I've got a VHS of it, so
yeah, it did extremely well on DVD. So yeah, I mean, it was definitely a qualified hit for the budget it cost for sure.
Yeah,
and it's sold worldwide as well. So like it's sold to all the pretty much right around the world. So then it was a case of like how to follow it up, and it's not wasn't easy, but I had a script that I'd done an adaptation of my student film, which was a zombie movie. And I wrote a script
on an oil rig.
On an oil rig, yeah, called Outpost. Set on an oil rig, zombie experimentation, all kinds of weird stuff. It was like something between The Abyss meets The Thing meets Night of the Living Dead. Short out like, or Dawn of the Dead, probably. I don't know. It was nuts, and I took that. So I managed to get a meeting with a company called Celador Films, which is a brand new company being set up. I met with Christian Coulson, the producer there, and he read the script. He said, "We absolutely love it, but it's just way too expensive for us. There's just no way that we can do this," which I understood. And so I was still living up in Carlisle or Newcastle at the time. I guess
we had
Carlisle.
A conversation about Outpost in Debenhams once. You told me what your next film was. You were hoping to make.
Yeah, so I was still living in Carlisle, and I got the train home. So from London, so after the meeting in London, Christine had basically said, what else have you got? I said, well, go away and think about it. Got on the train in London, however many 4 or 5 hours later or whatever, get off in Carlisle, and by that time I'd come up with The Descent. Or at least, the rough idea for The Descent of a caving trip gone horribly wrong. And I wrote a treatment for that, and then they basically said, this one we can do, and let's get it written. So that's where it started from.
And I mean, again, cracking cast, a bunch of strong women. Go caving and find some cannibals, underground cannibals that aren't chuds.
Yeah, basically. It was a combination of I suppose because Dog Soldiers was it wasn't 100% blokes, obviously, because Emma was in there, but it was like a much more kind of blokey, testosterone kind of movie, and I thought I want to do something completely different. And the more I did research into the kind of climbing and caving world, the more I saw that there were like these incredible women out there doing it, either in groups or by themselves, doing the most amazing stuff. And I was like, okay, these are the characters I'm looking for. So the idea of it being an all-female group seemed perfectly plausible. And it just went from there.
Well, you set the scene at the start that they're all a bit adrenaline junkies.
Yeah.
With the rafting, which is, a perfect.
Absolutely. I think, and as we see now, 20 years later or whatever, being an adrenaline junkie is hardly the purview of men. So, everybody's doing it. So it's great. Yeah. So that worked out. That made sense. It worked out. The creatures was a whole other thing of like, I've done fancy bodysuits or whatever. I want to bring it right back down to basics and make these like sort of Nosferatu underground or, Gollum's evil twin or something like that. So it's basically like the concept that they were humans who'd evolved within the caves. So so the thought was that they're the cavemen who stayed in the caves. So like when most of us
Yeah.
came out of the caves and started building houses, these ones went deeper into the caves and stayed there, and they evolved down there. And so there's a whole society down there. Because there's female crawlers and there's children crawlers and all sorts of down there. So yeah,
And it's fantastic. And right from the start, you can feel the building of claustrophobia because the score it's quite a claustrophobic score.
yeah.
And right from the start, and obviously when she wakes up from the coma, that whole with the tunnel and the lights going off, just excellent fits. It's like a nice foreboding for what's to come.
It was trying to get into the psychology of her grief and how the story how the adventure was going to affect her psychologically, to get into all that. So yeah, the music thing was when I wrote the script, because I listen to film soundtracks when I'm writing, and the soundtrack that I was listening to on repeat pretty much when I was writing The Descent was the score for Insomnia by David Julian. And when it came to making the film or whatever, I told this to the producers, said, what do you think is the chance of actually getting David Julian? Because at that point, he was Chris Nolan's go-to composer, and I was like, oh, we have a chance. But thankfully, we approached him, and he said yes, and he delivered a truly amazing score.
Oh, it is. It's a fantastic score that really, fits the film brilliantly. As I say, you can feel that claustrophobia just kind of closing in.
It's all sorts. It's like it's got all that when it goes, in the last 20 minutes of the film, which are pretty full on.
Yeah.
Like the score is just absolutely relentless. It's just like shreds your nerves.
Again, it's that way of directing that kind of horror action, which is superb at, which is a bit like similar to Sam Raimi, really, the way he directs his horror action. It's quite frenetic, and it looks great.
Yeah, I mean, it looks beautiful. Sam did a beautiful job with the cinematography, the same as he'd done on Dog Soldiers. We knew visually it was going to be quite striking because of the style that we talked about it way in advance of making it, of how we were going to light it with, essentially whatever the characters take with them, and use different color schemes and things like that. So there's going to be greens and reds and oranges and all that kind of stuff throughout the lighting scheme, and large portions of the screen. We wanted to film it in widescreen to actually help with the claustrophobia. So by having it as 2:3:5 full aspect ratio, we'd see more of the edges, we'd see more of the cave edges, and feel that claustrophobia around them all the time. And then sometimes the screens would be like almost totally black, and there'd just be like little pinpoint of light there with somebody holding a torch, and you get disorientated because you don't know what's around them, and then it's only when they start pointing the light around that you start to make sense of the environment. And I just think all of that adds to the claustrophobic feel of the film.
And there was only 21 cave sets, but yet you made them cave sets look so different with all
I think it was 12, not 21.
Oh, right. I read 21. So they've got that wrong on the internet.
Yeah, I can't think of...
Unless I've written it down wrong, and it should have been 12 and I've wrote down 21, but there we go.
Yeah, 12 sounds a bit more right, because we took up one of the smaller stages at Pinewood, and these sets were interchangeable, and I think one of them we used about 5 or 6 times in the movie, and you don't know.
No, you couldn't tell.
Yeah, it was literally like we're running out of places to film scenes. It was like, oh no, we have to go back there again. But once you turn the lights out and you move a couple of boulders around and you spray it a little bit of different color, and the actors never point their torches in the same place twice. So, we got away with murder literally down there.
It does. It looks like a massive, undertaking. It looks like you're actually down in some caves. It doesn't look like sets at all.
We did a lot to make it feel that way. I mean, they were quite claustrophobic sets. We were constantly spritzing them down, and they were always wet, and there's mist in the air and condensation and stuff like that, which is very cave-like, so I wanted to take away any feeling that we were on a set. Nothing was going to be
Yeah.
pleasant down there. The water that was flowing through the caves all the time was icy cold. The actors were soaked to the skin. It was January in these studios that weren't heated. So every time we'd finished a take, like we'd have to get them by the heaters and cover them in thermal blankets and stuff like that because they were shivering. It was a tough shoot for them, absolutely.
Oh, complete. I mean, that sequence where she's in that pool of blood and water and bones, and again, that's another great shot, which I think was used on one of the posters as well.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
but that's funny because that pool of blood was one of the only warm places on set. So, because we heated it. So Shauna, given the choice, was like, "Well, do you want to get out of the blood?" And she was like, "No, I'm going to stay here because it's toasty."
warm.
So she just stayed soaked in blood all day. But the trouble is that stuff actually stains you. So like the next day, she had a slightly orange glow to her.
Hey, cheap spray tan, isn't it? Just sit in a
Yeah.
pool of blood. And obviously the little shots where you just see the touches of the creatures and stuff like that as they're walking around, it's just superb.
Yeah, I tried to hint at the creatures before we actually see them.
Yeah.
And there are, well, there's definitely two. There's one that's really obvious, but there's one that's less obvious in which one of the creatures is in shot and then it disappears. And yeah,
I'll have to see if I can spot that again then, because I
had
didn't
had fun.
spot it.
Yeah, I had fun with that. Because we were shooting it once we got into the sets, because we did like a week and a half up in Scotland, doubling for the Appalachian Mountains, and
Yeah.
did all the exterior stuff there. There was a little bit of exterior stuff at a cabin just outside London. And then we moved into the studio, and from that point on, we shot the entire thing in linear order. So um, we were able to follow the story, follow the trajectory of the characters. When each character died, the actor basically was wrapped. So we got down to less and less and less. So yeah, doing that kind of stuff was, and then we introduced the crawlers at some point because at that point they hadn't met any of the actors playing the
All
crawler,
right.
hadn't seen a crawler, they hadn't seen any designs for a crawler, so they had no idea. They knew they were going to meet something because they'd read the script, but they didn't know what. And so what we tried doing was, I mean, there's one shot where you're looking past a crawler and they're walking away in the background, and the crawler's there and it's drooling and stuff like that. It's like we did that without telling them what we were doing. So as far as they were concerned, we were just doing a high angle shot of them walking through a cave, and we didn't tell them that we had a crawler. We had to sneak him in the back way and up the stairs and round, get him in the shot. And then we got him out before anybody, and they were getting suspicious by this point because they were like, where is he? When are we going to meet him? And then eventually we did the shot in the dark where they see them for the first time, and we literally did that. We turned the lights out and we brought the crawler in on set, and then we ran the scene so that the first time that they would actually see a crawler would be in the scene. But the problem was that their reaction was so over, like they all just ran screaming off the set. So that take became unusable, but it was a genuine reaction, I guess. And it ended up we did it a few times. And actually on the early takes, I had the crawler kind of just reaching toward her, and it looked weird. It didn't look scary. It just looked kind of funny, and it kind of just didn't work properly.
Right.
I said to Craig, who was playing the crawler, I said to Craig Conway, I said, on this one, just stand there and like tilt your head like you're listening, like you just look like some kind of pervert. And he did that, and it was instantly, it was just like, that's the one. That is so disturbing.
It's that thing, isn't it? Michael Myers and Jason Voorhees, they can, relay so much with just a head tilt.
Yeah.
I think
It's such a kind of animalistic thing
Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, we did that and that worked out fine. And then, but from that point on, the actors and the crawlers were fighting and stuff all the time, so they all got to meet each other.
But I mean, you mentioned Craig Conway there. Obviously, he was in Dog Soldiers in a small part as well. So a bit of your good luck charm, really, Craig, because he's in Doomsday as well.
Absolutely, no, Craig's been there from the start, and I need to get him in some stuff again for sure.
Yeah, I've been thinking of trying to I'm friends with him on Facebook, so I'm going to try and get Craig on the show at some point as well.
Yeah, no, I definitely need to work with him again.
Yeah,
Definitely.
he's a great actor. And he's superb in Doomsday, but we'll get to that one. Um, and obviously, the ending has been much debated, and you wanted the very downbeat ending.
Well, I mean, that is the ending.
Yeah.
But it's not. But so this is the debate being is which one is the most downbeat, really? Because so ultimately, what happened was the film came out in the UK and around the world, with the exception of the States,
Mm-hmm.
with the original ending on, with the correct ending on. Lionsgate, because also just to rewind a bit, we ended up in a bit of a race with another film at the same time called The
I've
Cave.
got the cave. I've got that written down here actually.
Yeah, so we knew that that film was in production. We knew was it was a bigger Hollywood film. It had a bigger budget. It had stars in it, stuff like that. So we were like, oh shit, if they get out first, we're dead. So we like went hell for leather to get Descent into cinemas before The Cave, and we beat them by a couple of months. And we shot Descent in January of I can't remember what year it was, but we shot it in January, and it was in cinemas by July, which is like nuts for a turnaround on a film.
It
But
is.
we did it, and we got it out ahead of The Cave in the UK. And then Lionsgate, who picked it up for the States, basically said, no, we're going to hang fire. We'll let The Cave come out. We'll wait about 6 months, and then we'll put it out. And we'll get behind the marketing. We'll show it at Sundance. We'll do all this kind of stuff. And that's what they did, and it was fantastic. But early on in the process, they came to us with a choice. They said, look, we've tested it because they love their audience testing. So
Yeah.
we've tested it with audiences with its current ending on, and it did really, really well. It was like up in the 80s somewhere, really good scores. We also tested it with the last 30 seconds cut off, and it went through the roof. It was like high 90s scores. It's like almost perfect. So the choice is we can release it with your ending on in like 1,000 screens, or you can release it with our ending on in 3,000 screens, and we'll get behind it much more. And at that point, we were like, well, the film's already out in the UK. It's already been out for a year in the UK and the world. It's out on DVD in the UK. If anybody in the States wants to see it, they can just get it on Amazon.
Yeah.
It's like that. Why kick up a stink about it? And at least this way, they're going to get behind it. We're going to get a much bigger release. What the hell? Let them do that. Fine. It's no skin off our backs. What that started for me was a debate on which one is actually the happier ending, because their argument is that she gets out of the cave, it must be a happy ending. My thinking is she gets out of the cave, right? She's clearly lost her mind. She's clearly lost her mind. She's lost all her friends, some of which she's like helped kill, and her family are already dead. Like, what happy ending is there for her here? She's going to end up in some asylum or prison or God knows what. Whereas at least in my ending, yes, she's trapped down in the cave, but in here, she's back with her daughter again.
Yeah.
That's the only happiness she's going to find. And that to me was like, that's the best ending. But, not everybody sees it the same way. So that's my own view on it. But I don't, I think it's interesting. It's caused debate that there's two endings. Nothing was reshot or changed. It was purely like the last 30 seconds of the film was trimmed off. That was it.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh no, but it's just I prefer the ending with where you're in her mind and the birthday cake and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
That's the ending for me. But here's a debate that's been coming up on a few podcasts I've been doing before we go on to Doomsday. What do you think is the perfect runtime for a horror film?
Oh, well, I mean, around about 100 minutes is pretty good. 90 minutes always feels a little bit like you're being shortchanged, tiny bit. But 100 minutes feels a good, comfortable length.
Which a lot of yours are.
Yeah, it kind of feels about right. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm between 90 minutes and 100 minutes. You know what I mean? I think if you go much past that with a horror film, you're kind of stretching it.
Yeah. I mean, I think maybe some of my stuff might have been better if it was 90 minutes, just to get it even tighter. But
I know I wouldn't say that with
recent
your
stuff.
stuff at all.
Yeah. But no, 100 minutes is a good length.
So, Doomsday, absolutely brilliant. I went to I mean, I've been to the cinema to see all your films, except I was in hospital when Hellboy came out, so I missed that. I didn't see the Lair, obviously, on the cinema either. But up until Hellboy, I'd seen all your stuff on the cinema. It was always, oh, there's a new Neil Marshall film, got to go and see it. But Doomsday, absolutely loved. Loved all the kind of Escape from New York references. Obviously, the Carlisle, Gretna, M6 nod. You know what I mean? It was just great. The whole, Mad Max Bartertown thing and Road Warrior nods and all of that.
It was off the back of the Descent. I had the opportunity to pretty much make what I wanted to make, and I had this crazy idea, and it still baffles me to this day that anybody agreed to finance it, because it is nuts. It doesn't have any big Hollywood stars in it. I mean, it has some well-known names for sure, but not like box office stars. Like nowadays, they'd never let me make that film without putting at least like one big star in it. I mean, Rona was a name, but she wasn't a star at that point. Bob Hoskins, Margaret McDowell, very well-known names, but not kind of box office stars. So that I got away with that is astonishing. That I got away with the whole idea of I wanted to do a big budget, big scale action apocalyptic movie in the UK, which essentially hadn't been done. I mean, it had been touched upon with things like 28 Days Later, and years ago with was a film called No Blade of Grass, which is kind of sort of like an early Mad Maxy type thing set in the UK, but it's very hard to find. But there's nothing else like it. So, and it was just an enormous love letter to the things that the movies of the 80s that I love so much. And yes, as you say, all Mad Max's, the Escape from New York's, and the Excalibur, and all sorts of things. It's all thrown in the mix there. And this notion of doing, a film that had futuristic soldiers and medieval knights, but didn't involve time travel. That was the hook for me. Was how can I make? I had this vision of a futuristic soldier with a medieval knights, horse rearing up before the soldier, and how can I make that happen without involving time travel? And that's where Doomsday kind of came from, that concept.
And it is superb, with the Reaper virus and all that kind of thing.
Well, it seems super prescient now, and it was, post-COVID, it's gained a whole new kind of following. And it was also funny that during COVID, I remember seeing on the news one night that at the worst point in COVID, it was on the news that they closed the border between England and Scotland. And for that, it was only for a day or something like that. But I was like, oh my God, it's happening. It's Tuesday. It's really happening. They're going to build a wall.
They're going to build a wall around. Yeah. But no, it's and Craig Conway is superb as Sol, the psychopath. And he doesn't go full Jack Nicholson either.
No. I mean, it's the whole thing of I'd like Adrian Lester in there because he's a fantastic actor, but he's mainly known for doing sort of Shakespeare and stuff. And when I met him, he let it be known that what I really want to do is an action movie, because he does martial arts and stuff like that. So I was like, great, let's just do an action movie together, and then getting some of the old team back together of getting Sean in there and getting Darren in there, and Craig and Chris and Les, and it's just awesome to get.
I take it they were all your first choice for the soldiers.
Sorry?
I take it they were all your first choice, the old team.
Absolutely.
Team.
Yeah, absolutely. And I almost didn't get Sean because I think he started to read it and it was like, oh, it's kind of it ain't Sergeant Wells, is it? It's a boring old doctor. And then he read his death scene and he was like, oh, I'm doing it for that. That's why I'm going to do it, for that death scene.
Medium rare.
Yeah. So getting them back together, getting people like Bob Hoskins and whatever, and then Craig, I really had to fight hard to get him in that role because again, the execs were pressuring me to put other actors in that role, and I said no, Craig is the guy. Craig is the guy, and he delivered the goods, 100%.
Completely.
He was really,
Yeah,
really like he loved that role.
I could imagine because he just looked like he was having so much fun with it,
Yeah.
you know. And the soundtrack
Well,
is,
again, because we had a decent budget on it, I got to use, some of my favorite songs, and I get some like 80s classics in there. I always wanted to do a car chase to, Two Tribes.
Two Tribes, man,
Um,
brilliant.
Susie and the Banshee Spellbound is possibly my favorite song of all time. So like, I desperate to get that in a movie, and some Adam and the Ants and bits and
Yeah,
pieces. Fine Young Cannibals dance sequence. It was just an opportunity to go nuts. So it's fun.
and getting music rights as well is a hard thing to do, but you pick the right songs for the right times, which was just, and that as you said, that end car chase sequence with Two Tribes
Yeah,
fits perfectly.
it does fit perfectly because I'd seen it on the movie The Supergrass back in the
Yes.
80s with Robbie Coltrane walking along a pier in a storm with that music playing. It was like, oh, that's really cool. But I think it would be really good on a car chase. Um, so yeah, there's a lot of stuff like that. I mean, obviously, like I got the couple of the girls back from Descent as well, so it became quite a sort of family reunion thing. It was a lot of fun.
Well, yeah, in your first few films, you do like, you've used the same actors over and over, which is great to see. So they'll have all known how you film. So it'll have been an easier transition from actor to director, so to speak.
Yeah, I think a lot of directors do that. They like to have their little sort of ensemble of actors that they go back to and put in different roles and try new things with. And I kind of picked it up from people like John Ford and Howard Hawks, but
Mm.
nowadays there's other directors like Paul Thomas Anderson or whatever that use different actors in different roles all the time, and it's great. It's fun working with with your mates ultimately.
Yeah, well, I mean, the likes of Roger Corman and all that, they used to do it, kind of
Yeah,
same guys back. It was a nice team to do. Um, and obviously, there's Bad Manners in there as well, which I heard when I hear that, it just reminds me of my dad when Charles and Diana got married, and he
right.
put Bad Manners on and
Yeah,
done the can in his undies. So that's what always
fabulous.
reminds me of that. Yeah, so it always reminds me of that. And obviously, getting Malcolm McDowell in there, that must have been a joy to direct that man.
It was. I mean, him and Bob. Bob
Mm,
Hoskins was an absolute gem. Lovely, lovely man, and such a sad loss. His favorite place in the world was to be on a film set, and he loved the film crew, and he just used to hang out and laugh and chat with us all the time. He was a lovely, lovely guy. And with Malcolm McDowell, so the last time those two had been in the same film together was a film called Royal Flash back in the 70s. That
great film.
Richard Lester. It's a fantastic film. So it was great to reunite them again. McDowell was just again hilarious and charming and just really nice guy. I mean, he's a Yorkshireman at heart, so like um, very down to earth, but very funny.
Yeah.
And he was great as well. And also because we had Alexander Siddig playing the Prime Minister.
Yes.
And I didn't know until they were both in the film together that Alexander Siddig is Malcolm McDowell's nephew, or I think he's his nephew.
I didn't
Yeah,
know that.
yes, they're related. I didn't know that either. Until he told me, I was like, yeah,
That's
nephew.
brilliant. I've had a cameo from Malcolm McDowell. My mate got us it a few birthdays ago, where he regales me with stories of If, because that's my favourite film of his.
Nice, nice.
Um, I,
That's the thing. So when I meet somebody like McDowell, I'm always at pains not to talk to them about the thing they're sick of talking about. So
yeah,
like I didn't ask him anything about Clockwork Orange because it's like he just doesn't want to talk about that. I was asking him about things like If and Figures in the Landscape and Royal
yeah.
Flash, all this kind of other stuff that he's done, which is amazing. I was like, oh, that's what I want to talk about. And I did the same thing when I met Anthony Hopkins, and and Bob Hoskins was the same. It was like, which film does he not want to talk about? Possibly Roger Rabbit. So let's talk about other stuff.
For me, I'd just been chatting to Hoskins Long Good Friday.
Yeah, No, I did. I definitely did.
Yeah, it's a
A lot
superb
about
film.
that and Mona Lisa and, just amazing work.
Well, that weekend we screened Dog Soldiers doubled up with Scum. The day before we'd screened Along Good Friday.
Right. Well, that is a
So
masterpiece.
you were in, that was our British Films weekend, Friday, Saturday, so to speak. So
Yeah.
you were in great company.
Wow. That is good company.
Yeah, and you did love the Scum and Dog Soldiers poster, because I can remember
What
our
a combination.
conversation. Yeah, yeah. And I remember the conversation we had when I asked you to do the video, and you just got back with, what was it again? It was the tool thing.
Oh, where's your tool?
Where's your tool?
Yeah.
So I had to get back to you and went, what fucking tool? Brilliant. And it was a great double bill, actually. It was a bit quiet because Carlisle was pissing down with rain. So everybody thought we were going to flood.
Oh, God.
So it was one of those. But, I mean, it's got a few really nice nods in Doomsday. It's full of great action. And it's non-stop.
Yeah,
There's very
it's
little
pretty relentless.
downtime in it.
Yeah. Once it gets going, it's non-stop.
Yeah, and great cast. And then 2010, you directed the fantastic Roman Centurion film, Centurion.
Yeah.
Again, full of nods to Carlisle.
Yeah.
You're just sitting there watching these first few films, it's just like, there's a nod to Carlisle, there's a nod to Carlisle.
Yeah, I mean, certainly when you're dealing with the Romans and stuff like that, it's impossible not to. But I was like, obviously, I deliberately put a couple of, winks and stuff in there. I think, doing these kind of films was an opportunity for me. Was like, I didn't want to get pigeonholed as just an action director, a horror director. I wanted to be an action director more than anything. And doing a big sci-fi adventure in the UK was like, okay, that's nobody's really done that before. This was a chance to do a big kind of period wilderness adventure in the UK, which again was like, how many of those are there? Not many, because there's not much wilderness in the UK. So there's not many films like that. Of course, as per usual, we just come up with this thing and then two films come along at once that sort of deal with similar subject matter. But I see them as because I'm talking about the how was it called?
Eagle was one.
The Eagle, yeah.
Was it the Legionnaire? No.
Well, the Eagle was the main one because I mean it's basically they hinge around the same story, which is to do with the Eagle of the Nines. I actually almost see that Centurion is a prequel to the Eagle. If you know what I mean.
Yeah, I can
prequel,
see that.
because the Eagle takes place years later, and it's about like the son or something of one of the missing Legionnaires. He goes back to reclaim the Eagle. So if you think about it that way, it's like the Eagle is the sequel to Centurion, in terms of the dealing with a similar kind of story. Except in Centurion, the Eagle gets destroyed on the fire. So yeah, but
no,
yeah,
it's still half there when you look. It's not completely destroyed. You can still see.
Yeah,
it didn't melt.
Well, it's assuming that part wouldn't burn.
Yeah.
So they can go and save it.
That's it. And Channing Tatum did. Or
Yeah.
tried to. But again, what a cast! Dominic West, Lee Ross, David Morrissey, Liam Cunningham again, Riz Ahmed, who's went on to do big things, and Olga Korolenko as the turncoat picked. Again, another strong female. All your films have had really strong female, and Imogen Poots in there. And I could go on naming, but it's all great English, Irish, and Scottish actors.
Yeah. We got an astonishing cast for that. And even like supporting players, like we got Paul Freeman in there, was like, holy, I get to work with Belloc. So that was amazing. And in that scene with him, there's Michael Carter from American Werewolf in London. So like getting him in, so it was just awesome. Just got some great actors in, like even the smallest roles. We got Rachel Sterling in. for a brief role as well. It's like, yeah, it's a hell of a cast.
Oh yeah, definitely it is. It's such a great film because it kind of starts out, a bit of men on a mission, then goes all warriors when they're heading back to basically Carlisle's Coney Island.
Yeah. Well, it sort of came full circle because the Warriors being based on the story of Xenophon. So I thought, oh, it's okay to bring that concept and put it in a Roman historical setting as well. But like, it's soldiers behind enemy lines trying to escape, basically trying to fight their way back to freedom. And it was like, it's a little bit of that. There's loads of nods to Western movies in there. There's loads of
Yes,
Butch and Sundancers in there. And guys on the run in the West, stuff like that. So yeah,
it's got a touch of the spaghetti western kind of aesthetic about it in a way. What the Italians were doing because they were always a lot more rough and ready.
Yeah, but as I say again, it's like it's a big scale. I mean, fairly low budget, but big scale outdoors epic adventure that's set in the UK, which is pretty unusual.
But it works, and it is a top film. It doesn't get talked about enough.
Thank you. No, I appreciate that. I really do. I think what I also did with it, and the same with Doomsday, was that I brought my horror sensibilities to it. I didn't want to make a horror film, but I brought my horror sensibilities to it. So like, it was like, if people are going to be hacking away at each other with swords and spears, let's make it look authentic, which is going to be gnarly.
And the thing which I've not mentioned yet as well, which I always love about you, is you try to get it like mostly practical effects.
Yeah,
which is
whatever
great.
I possibly can. Yeah, there's a good blend in Centurion, certainly in some of the fight sequences where, we did have to add in a bit of CG blood afterwards, but a lot of the effects in that film are 100% practical.
Well, I did notice the CG blood, but for once, it didn't just kind of come out like a mist, like you see in a lot of this. It felt, kind of it splatted, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas a lot of CG blood you see when they're getting shot, it's just mist, and you think that's not how it would be.
Yeah, no, so I think some of the color grading on the blood wasn't it made it too bright, which it should have been much darker. But so that's the only way you can discern the CG blood from the real blood, is it's slightly brighter. But there's such a mix of it, and there's so much of it in the film. It's like, yeah.
Oh, it's a pretty blood heavy film, to be honest. There's some mighty fine action sequences with swords, and brutal as well. Heads getting chopped off, all sorts. It's great. Let's just say it's not my dad's sword and sorcery film.
No,
you know what I mean. It's no. I'm trying to think of the big Roman epics from back in the day, Spartacus and the likes of. You know what I mean? It's got a lot more grit to it, which was
definitely some Spartacus influences in there though, with the fireballs and stuff like that.
Yeah, and then obviously after you did Centurion, you kind of started doing a bit of TV work.
Well, after Centurion, things changed in the UK a bit. That Pathé kind of backed down from producing films and went more into distribution. And Celador Films, basically, once they'd done Slumdog Millionaire and cleaned up at the Oscars and all that kind of stuff, they kind of decided not to make any more films after that. So my financing kind of ran out in the UK, and I was like struggling to find the ability to make a film. But then I got offered a job on Game of Thrones, and obviously I was going to take that. So and a lot of people from Centurion had gone on to Game of Thrones, which is kind of the reason that I got the job offer. They needed me to come and bail them out because they were doing the Battle of Blackwater, and their original director dropped out like 2 weeks before filming, and they were kind of in the shit. So the stunt coordinator from Centurion, a guy called Paul Herbert, told the producers showed them Centurion, said, give Neil a call, he'll sort you out. And they saw that I could do a battle sequence in like 2 days. So they gave me the job on Game of Thrones. And from there, it was like legit. You know, all this TV work started to come in, and it was great. So I was happy to do it for a while. I was still trying to get features made or get on board features, but it was proving quite difficult until Hellboy came along. So that was 9 years later. But
Yeah,
during
I mean,
that time, I did a ton of really cool TV, and it was great.
well, you did. I mean, what was it like working on Lost in Space? Obviously, you'll have been a big fan watching it on Channel 4 in your youth, like we all
Well,
did.
yeah, I mean, it was just again, it was what I loved about working in the TV space was jumping between genres because I was doing, some sci-fi and doing a west. I did, I did Westworld, so I did Western. I did Black Sail, so I did Pirates.
Mm.
I did Hannibal. I did Constantine. I did Timeless. I did a whole bunch of stuff, and then to go and do a straight up sci-fi thing like Lost in Space was absolutely perfect. And I got to design spaceships and robots and all sorts. I love that.
Constantine, now that was a great show that got killed too soon. Love that
Well,
show.
the problem with that show was always the case of like they were trying to do a streaming character on a network TV show. The limitations of network TV is, you can't drink, you can't smoke, you can't swear. I was like, these are all like some of the major attributes of that character. So like you're stripping
Yeah,
away
very true.
everything that he is and just basically leaving this guy and he's got to be nice to everybody. It's like, well, that's not Constantine. So it was great. Matt was brilliant in the character, and I was so glad that his take on the character got to live on through other TV shows.
Yes.
That he ended up playing Constantine in Legends of Tomorrow and being able to be more like the actual character should be, made sense to me. Was good. Was the
He
right
played
home
him in
for him.
the animated as well.
Yeah,
The animated, which were all great. Big Constantine fan. Obviously, he's got the connections to Newcastle as well, as we know.
yeah,
But and then you directed a segment in Tales of Halloween,
yes,
the great anthology, and you done the last segment,
yeah.
the Killer Pumpkin, which just reminded me, gave off Attack of the Killer Tomatoes vibes.
Totally. I think I mean it was so much of a passion project. Axel and Mike Mendez put together this uh idea and we all just came on board of like we just did it for love of like it was the whole LA horror community just kind of got
Yeah,
together, just made this nutso film and we just did it. It was done dirt cheap. I can't even remember what the budgets were for each film, but it was like next to nothing. The whole budget for the entire thing was about 150 grand. It was like absolutely nothing. We just
bloody hell. And you
we
had
just
such a good cast as well.
well, it was just everybody doing favors. I mean,
Yeah,
like, I don't know, I can't remember if they got paid anything at all. They got paid virtually nothing, but we just blagged in favors for everybody that we could ask a favor from, and everybody wanted to be a part of it. We shot it I think we shot it over like 2 weeks or something,
right.
and it was closer to Christmas time, so we had a slight problem with that. Everybody was putting their Christmas lights up, and we were like, no, can we take them down and put Halloween lights up instead? Um, but yeah, we just filmed it on the streets of LA, and um, the thing was to make it fun. So I wanted to get a lot of cameos in there. Managed to get Adrian Barbeau in to shoot like as the radio DJ. I got, I mean,
Joe
everybody,
Dante.
everybody in my film is somebody of note. Is like, obviously Joe Dante, but Christina Klebe, and I got Adam Green and Graham Skipper, and like all these people from the horror community, like even the
Yeah,
smaller parts. The sketch artist is Drew Struzan, like the great
that's right.
poster artist. Um, so yeah, I mean it was just a phenomenal cast.
Yeah, it is. It's such a great little short as well. And
And then the
it's
guy who gets his head bitten off is Greg McLean.
that's
So
right.
and I just fancied doing like once I had this idea of like what about a killer pumpkin that like bites people's heads off and stuff like you know it just inherently was like really funny. So
Oh, it's a great throwback to kind of them, 50s, 60s, Roger Corman monster movies,
yeah, it's the purple
Attack of the
pig
Killer
leader.
Tomatoes. Yeah, just
Yeah,
superb. I really enjoyed that. I enjoy the Tales from Halloween. Actually, it's a great little great
I think
film.
it's a good fun Halloween anthology. I mean, we blagged so many favors with that. We got Lalo Schifrin in to do the main theme. It's like nuts.
Brilliant. And then obviously, I don't know if you want to talk about Hellboy because I know you had a really bad time on it. Um,
Not an awful lot to say about it, really. I mean, it wasn't a pleasant experience for me creatively. I mean, I get approached by a lot of people now who think it's their favorite one. So, I'm happy. I'm glad that they think it's
I
their
mean,
favorite one.
I enjoyed it, but it just didn't have the normal Neil Marshall flourishes.
No. And then the weird thing about it for me is that because it's like loaded with CG gore, I think a lot of people think that that's my influence, and actually, I had nothing to do with it. I'd left
Yeah.
the project by the time all that was put in. I wanted to make a horror version of Hellboy. That's what I signed up for. But once I got involved, it was clear they didn't want me to do that, and they wouldn't let me touch the script. And they just didn't want to make a horror version of Hellboy at all. They thought what they had was something really funny, and it's like, no, it wasn't. It wasn't funny at all. The jokes just don't
No,
land. Sorry.
no, yeah, there is so much that does not. I mean, I've watched it a few times and I enjoy it, but especially, I just watched a load of your films, you know, and then I watched Hellboy last night, and
Hmm.
it was just like you can just tell he's just in there to hire a director.
Yeah. No, it pretty much
The,
was that. I mean, I don't want to say I don't want to go on about it too much, but it's the only creative choice that I had in that film that nobody interfered with was calling cut.
oh God, right there we go. So you've heard it here, all about Hellboy. We'll move on quite quickly. And now the last film I've watched of yours recently was The Reckoning this morning,
Hmm.
which I'd seen before when it first came out, and I really enjoy it. It's got that kind of throwback folk horror kind of vibe to the 70s Tygon films like Witchfinder General, Blood on Satan's Claw,
Yeah,
that kind of
that's what I was going
slower,
for.
and the Devils as well, as touches of the Devils in there.
Hmm. Yeah, I was definitely going for that vibe. I think in retrospect, it probably takes itself a little bit too seriously. I think I should have made it more of a bit fun B movie, but and I think I got a bit carried away with the message, and that was kind of come from doing all the research in it and seeing all the injustice, reading the
Yeah,
real injustices that happened at the time. I think I got a bit carried away of like, I want to make a statement about, the injustices of witch hunts, and especially in a time when, witch hunts were kind of, very prevalent of a different kind, which was
cancellation culture.
happening with cancel culture and stuff like that. It was kind of like I wanted to make a bit of a statement about it. And I think I just sort of disappeared up my own arse for a bit there. But what I am happy about with it is I think it's one of the most beautiful films that I've shot. I think it looks gorgeous.
Oh, I mean the sets, because you shot it over in Hungary, didn't you?
Yeah, in Budapest, we found this amazing backlot that had been around for like 30 years, and used for a ton of stuff. I think they just used a lot of it for the first season of The Witcher. So it was good to, they'd spruced it up a bit, so we took advantage of that. And yeah, we just managed to do so much within these sets and just gave it such production value for a low budget film. Because it only cost like 2 million. And so
Bloody
yeah.
hell!
Um,
It looks like it's a more expensive film than that. I've got to say.
well, yeah, I think that's all down to good production design, great photography, shooting it in widescreen, which always makes things look more expensive,
Yeah,
and just really careful use of that money. We did a day or days two filming. I drove down, just me and the camera guy, drove down to Dartmoor and just got some like GVs of Dartmoor and stuff like that, and then cut that in with the stuff that we put together in Budapest, and it all kind of worked.
yeah. No, it is. It's Sean Pertwee back in it, and he's excellent as
Yeah.
John Moorcraft, the Witch Hunter.
Given the
Um,
biggest hat in the world.
yeah, well, that's what they all had, wasn't it? Big hats.
Absolutely. Oh no, he
When
loved his
you,
hat.
and he loved his hat. But no, it is. It has got that kind of that devil's kind of feel to it, especially during the sequence with the where the nuns are all stripping her down. I'm not going to go into graphic detail, but I
Well,
think you
yeah, I mean,
know.
the idea that was the devilry real, or was it all in her mind? Was it
Yeah,
actually the accusations and torture that made it happen in her mind, like it's because it was driving her insane? All these kind of things were of interest to me. And one of the things I really liked was the different ideology of the two villains. Like you had
Mm.
two villains that are villainous for two different reasons. One's just like a psycho, and the other one is this ideologist, but his ideology's really screwed up.
Yeah.
So, and how they approach things, then you think of them as both being villains, but they're clearly not on the same path. Like they don't think the same. Um, so I like that concept.
And it's an excellent kind of, as I said, slow burn and well worth watching for anybody over the Halloween October period if you're looking for a good film and wanting something kind of folk horror-y. Definitely go with The
Hmm.
Reckoning. And I think it's on. Is it on Tubi? I think it's on Tubi America.
Okay, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it might be. I might be wrong. Um, yeah, I think it's on Tubi America. I'm not sure. Uh, yeah, and then we've got the excellent Lair, which I thoroughly enjoyed. Creature feature, alien, predator, all in the mix.
Yeah. Again, it was trying to get back to that spirit of Dog Soldiers in a way, um, of just doing a really fun B movie with alien monsters in and stuff, genetics and Russian bunkers and soldiers and stuff like that, and just have a lot of fun with that and get a lot of action in as well. Um, but it was a product of lockdown of like, what kind of film can we make that's like a few actors in one location.
Yeah,
And it was meant to be a really, really small budget little thing, and it just expanded into suddenly, oh, it's Afghanistan and there's soldiers and there's, you know, tanks, and there's like, okay, kind of blew up into something bigger. Um, so that was interesting. That was fun. And I think also off the back of the reckoning of like thinking, oh, I was taking myself a bit too seriously there, which is a bad idea. Do something that's just way more fun and tongue in cheek. Uh, it's just a daft monster movie, which is, absolutely what I made.
I mean, you can all. I mean, I've not seen the Duchess yet, which is your latest film. So tell me about. All I know it's from the trailer. You've got Charlotte Kirkback, who seems to be your lead actress of choice at the moment.
No,
Your
not anymore.
muse. All right, okay then.
Not anymore.
Right, is this next film your last film,
Well,
or is it?
because that's also the thing was Duchess was shot uh 2 years ago, nearly 3 years ago.
Right, bloody hell.
Um, it's just these things take an awful long time, and life goes on even when films don't. So yeah, no, so I shot it in 2022, and it's only just come out now. But so it's a change of pace again. It was a gangster movie. I hadn't done a gangster movie before, so I fancy
No,
doing crime thriller, sort of Scarface with a female twist. Another strong female lead. Um, so yeah, and
it's
there's
definitely
another
reaching in
movie.
there.
Yeah, there's another movie that beyond that was shot just after Duchess that still is yet to come out. So
All right,
yeah,
what's that one?
it's called Compulsion. It's like a giallo slasher movie,
Oh,
uh,
nice.
which was shot down in Malta. But and that's the last one that has Charlotte in it.
Right. Oh well. What? Anything? I know you've got. Is it Pendragon? I've heard
There's a bunch of
rumblings.
there's a bunch of scripts I've been touting around for ages to try and get made. Pendragon is definitely a big one that I'd love to make one day. It's my essentially like the sequel to Excalibur of sorts. I mean, it picks up where Excalibur left off.
Oh, excellent! I love Excalibur. It
Yeah.
just everything about that film. It looks beautiful. It's just everything about it. And I've watched it since I was a kid, where I didn't quite understand it, and I just
Yeah.
like the King Arthur.
It's one of my all-time favorites. I mean, this Pendragon story isn't a direct sequel to Excalibur. I mean, I just use that as the best example of it's a
Yeah,
sequel to the Arthurian legend as we know it.
yeah,
So what happened after Arthur died, basically, and it's a whole new adventure with new characters and stuff like that, but some old favorites as well, Guinevere and people like that. People who survived the original story like turn
yeah,
up.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, no, it's fun. It'd be a good thing to do someday.
So if Marvel or DC came knocking, Would
Sorry?
you go on if Marvel or DC came knocking for you to direct one of their
Well,
projects
I
or
mean,
get
chance would be
involved?
a fine thing, but would I do so? I don't know. It depends on what it was, really. Um, yeah, who can say? It's
I
so
think you'd
unlikely to
be.
happen. I could just say, oh yeah, I'll totally do it.
I think you'd do a great job, especially with some of the kind of more horror action characters.
Well, I mean, because I was said years ago, like I was asked this question years ago, and I said, well, I'd do a Black Widow movie, and the reason being was that she wasn't a superhero. It's like she's just like extremely skilled, and I kind of like that. I was like, she
Yeah,
doesn't have to be an actual superhero. Um, I honestly don't know. I don't know what I would do, but maybe the stuff in the DC universe would be interesting for sure.
yeah.
Um,
Maybe
but
if they'd done a Constantine correctly.
yeah, it'd be good to revisit that with the opportunity to do it right for sure.
Yeah.
Um,
Um,
but
I've
who
got a
knows?
few other
It's never going to happen, so I
questions.
wouldn't worry about it.
A few other questions, and I'll let you get off. Um, First one is a question from Dominic Brunt.
Yes.
How important do you think the European Film Festival circuit is for independent filmmakers starting out?
What I want to know is why Dominic didn't just ask me in person.
Because I asked him if he had any
Because
questions to ask
I
you.
just saw him the other day, the other week at Fright
I
Fest.
only
Anyway,
I messaged him a couple of days ago.
lovely chap.
He is.
Yeah, loving a bit. Anyway, so what the European Festival Circuit is absolutely vital, absolutely vital. I mean, it's a chance for a lot of filmmakers to see their film on the big screen, which may be their one and only chance, to see it in the festivals, and to get out there with audiences and appreciative crowds and meet other filmmakers, meet the fans. The whole festival circuit is fantastic, and long may it live.
Excellent. So there you go, Dominic. If you're watching and listening, because I know you like the show, he does actually watch. Because I just interviewed him last week.
Well,
So,
top bloke,
eh?
top bloke.
Yes, he is very much so. And you've got tattoos of all the films you've written and directed,
Yes,
except Hellboy, obviously.
yes, that doesn't count.
No.
No,
So have you got one?
I got tattoos of my babies, which is so like I can show you. So, uh, Dog Soldiers, Descent. This is the crossed ice picks. So Dog
Yeah,
Soldiers is the insignia. It's
yeah,
the wolf's head with the dagger through it. It was the insignia that the guys wear on their
that's
uniforms.
right.
Crossed ice picks for Descent. The biohazard thing for Doomsday, and the Roman numerals 9 for the Ninth Legion, Centurion. And then on this side, we got sorry, uh,
Reckoning.
the Plague Doctor for the Reckoning,
Yeah,
the RAF logo for the Lair because it's the RAF pilot, the Blood Diamond for Duchess, and this is the samurai sword wielding killer from the Reckoning. Not Reckoning, Compulsion. What about?
excellent. Great
So
tattoos,
I
then.
need to start putting some more elsewhere. I need
That's
to make
right.
more movies.
Well, you're a very talented director, so that shouldn't be a problem. Well, if I had the
Well,
money, I'd back you. Let's just say
easier said than done.
if I was a
No, just
multi-millionaire, I'd back you because I've
thank
always
you,
been a fan. Is there
thank you.
any films you would love to direct?
Would it
Like a
like a
new Star
remake or
Wars
a?
film? No, a new Star
Oh,
Wars film, or
oh
say I've
yeah.
just seen Alien Romulus, so a new Alien film or something like
Yeah.
that.
There's a few things like okay. Well, I mean, like I'd love to do a Bond movie. I would kill to do a Bond movie. I'd love to do something in the Alien universe, definitely. Um, and I wish I'd directed the last Indiana Jones film. That would have been because I think
So it wasn't
I
that
would have
bad.
made it more exciting.
Yeah, it wasn't that bad. Let's be honest, it was better than 4.
Uh, Don't know.
What's your favourite Bond movie then?
Bond movie. Well, it's a choice between two movies in two different styles. I mean, the first Bond movie I ever saw was Spy Love Me. That's the first one I ever saw it in the cinema, and it kind of, that was my introduction to Bond. So obviously that's got to hold a place in my heart as a certain kind of Bond movie. I think Casino Royale probably is the best one. I think that's it's perfect.
For me, Live and Let Die.
Yeah,
love it. Great blaxploitation kind of vibe to it. I'm a big blaxploitation fan. And License to Kill.
I like a lot about License to Kill. It is a good film. I don't like Timothy Dalton's hair in it, but I like the film.
I don't like Timothy Dalton's hair. It's a very hard-edged film.
No, it's great. It's got a lot of good stuff. I remember.
Daniel Craig's done.
Yeah, maybe. Thing is that not that I want to condone like the use of AI on dead actors and stuff like that, but I'd love to see something. I'd love to have seen a film with Sean Connery in a film as intense and action-packed as Casino Royale, like how he would have done that movie, but not then. Now, like a young Sean Connery in a Bond movie now would be awesome.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense at all.
I know exactly what you're saying. Another one, director Steve Kostansky, who done The Void, Psycho Gorman, etc. He just told me to say that The Descent is one of the greatest horror films of all time.
Oh, well, thank you very much, Steve.
So, he's a lovely man. And
very talented man.
Yes, I was lucky enough to get him on the show a few weeks back as well, and he's doing Deathstalker.
Nice.
Yeah, which I'm looking forward to. They're doing the final bits and bobs on that at the moment, I believe.
Oh wow!
So I enjoyed the Deathstalker films. So, with the second being the best.
Yeah, fantastic.
So he's doing that, and he's just got Frankie Frico out, which is like a Ghoulies style little monsters thing.
I mean, I think that definitely is a time for a comeback for sword and sorcery movies.
Oh, completely.
It's one of my favorite genres.
There's a good idea for you, a sword and sorcery movie.
Well, yeah, I mean, I came very close to doing a Conan film at one point, and the rights expired and it all fell apart. It's just like these things do. And there was talk of Netflix doing a Conan TV series, which doesn't seem to have materialized. But I'd love to do sword and sorcery. I mean, Pendragon is sword and sorcery.
Yeah.
It's got dragon in it, so that definitely counts. And it's got a sword, Excalibur.
Yeah, so, Excalibur, which is a magic sword.
Definitely. So that is, I'd love to see that happen. But yeah, sword and sorcery, fantasy. I mean, obviously we've got Lord of the Rings and all that stuff on TV now, House of the Dragon, all that kind of stuff, which is I guess is sorcery, but that's more fantasy than sword and sorcery.
Yeah.
I think maybe, I don't know. I just love the cheese of pure 80s sword and sorcery. It's just the best.
Oh, you can't beat them. You know what I mean? The Sorcerer and the Archer and all them kind of films. And I mean, how many did Roger Corman make?
Yeah,
he was behind all the Deathstalker ones, and then there was the Italian ones, Ator and all that.
Yeah.
Oh man, they were everywhere. You couldn't walk into a video shop without seeing a Conan ripoff, or you know what I mean.
Yeah,
there was loads of them, and they were great. They were great fun.
Well, we've got the new Red Sonja coming at some point, so we'll wait and see what that's going to be like.
I've heard about that, but I've not seen any photos of who's playing her or anything like that. I just knew the Macon one.
We shall see.
Yes, and I think we've covered absolutely everything I've wanted to cover. So,
all right.
Thank you so much for being here. If you stick around just after we sign off,
okay,
and I'll have a quick natter with you.
Polly's trying to make a cameo.
Hello, puppy. Hello. I better not say anything about a dog, because my two will come rushing in and start yapping and being pains in the asses. But two French bulldogs, they're ignorant.
She'll start barking in a minute because she'll get jealous that I'm sitting here talking to you. She'll be like, why aren't you paying me attention?
Yeah, that's dogs all over, brilliant. But
Yeah.
anyways, right, so thank you so much for being here, Neil. It's
Oh,
been
you're
an
welcome.
absolute pleasure having you on the show finally. And yeah, I've been PD. That's been Neil Marshall. We've been Carlisle Cult Cinema Club Presents, Neil Marshall in Conversation. Thank you very much, Neil.
I'm Neil Marshall, director of Dog Soldiers, Descent, and a bunch of other stuff. You're watching the Carlisle Cult Cinema Club. Please go and subscribe to them on YouTube and... what was it?
Facebook.
Facebook.